Welcome back. This is the AM show, and we're doing this until 9 a.m. So I was asking you a question earlier on a year ago. Today, we went to the polls, and you voted. You chose a wife. You chose a husband. A year later, how do you feel about that decision that you made? If you voted for, you voted against, how is it going for you? Please go over to our social media pages and let's get interactive. We'll be having that conversation live. I'll love it if you call in and we can have that conversation about how you feel about the decision that you made a year ago. Today, but of course, that decision has an impact on us, and all of us are feeling it. This morning, apparently, if you want to buy petrol, it's at 6.7. It was 6.85 before 6 a.m. We're trusting that it's at 6.7. We'll have some of our correspondents let us know if the prices have gone down to 6.7. We know that about 40% of that is tax. So the question this morning is, 6.7 is okay, for a start, but how much more tax can be taken off that so that petrol and diesel and fuel is more affordable for the average Ghanaian who apparently, as it stands now, may have to pay 1.75% on all your e-transactions. So we'll be having that conversation as well. But this morning, we have a friend in the studio, Hassan Suhuyini. Did I get that right? Yes, okay. MP for Tamale North. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad with pronunciations.
That's fine. I mean,
yeah. And I've heard it so many times. You can hear a name so many times, but the first time you try to pronounce it, it's,
you struggle to get it right.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you are in good company. A lot of people don't pronounce it well.
Don't pronounce it well. I'll take it that I'm forgiven. He's the MP for Tamale North, and he's joining us to have a conversation, of course, on the budget, because, who wants to talk about anything else but the budget? Okay, so good morning.
Good morning, Imwa.
And thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure to be here.
So yesterday, the Minister of Finance presented his seven modifications. The NDC asked for 5. I guess he felt like, I'm just going to throw, a couple more in and leave out the one that's actually, well, the most important, in quotation marks, because it's the e-levy that everyone's talking about. What's the initial reaction from your side of Parliament on these modifications that have been presented?
Well, let me say good morning to our viewers, especially the very good people of the Tamale North constituency. My initial reaction is maybe to the point that you made about how many demands we made. We made more than 5 demands.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, if you followed the budget debate on the floor, various members made different demands. Yeah. And some of the demands included the 2 that he has added. Okay. For example, the benchmarks issue came up strongly. The need to reduce fuel prices, which has not also been responded to yet, came up in the debates on the floor strongly. So various demands were made by different members of Parliament on the minority side. But at the end of the day, the minority leader representing the caucus distilled them down to just 5. Yes, as the main issues that we wanted to negotiate on if we had the opportunity to negotiate. Yeah. And so it has to be said that yes, we are representing the views of majority of Ghanaians. So the minister in his presentation yesterday indicated that he has not only been engaging the minority, but other shades of opinions in the country, and that is what informed the decision to bring out the 7 that he brought out. Okay, so we have the minister talking about the 7. Right. So for those of our listeners who are kind of catching up this morning, we want to go back and do the 7. And before we do that, though, I just want to pick your thoughts on the benchmark issue. Because there was a paragraph in what he said where he said about 50% is going to of that benchmark is going to translate into vehicles and all of that, and he doesn't feel like the prices the difference would be a lot. And I read that and I was thinking, I went to Abosso Kanya about 3 weeks ago, and I found out that we don't even produce fan belts here in Ghana. We don't produce anything. So, I mean, the question that came up for me was how realistic, are some of these comments that are being made, and
I mean, do we really have a grasp of the reality of what Ghanaians are going through?
Well, sometimes that's a fair question to ask, because you would think that some of these policies will support people who will want to produce such basic things in this country. For example, I do know that there's an issue outstanding in relation to what prices of cement may be in the not too distant future if these benchmark issues are not properly dealt with. For example, because you have a part of it affecting clinker and the other part not affecting raw products that are brought in. But you have, for example, Dangote, which is here, and if it is not properly looked at, Gassam is going to have an advantage over Dangote cement, and Dangote may have to price its cement higher than what do you call it, the Gassam that is here. But then they are all local to some extent, African, indigenous, West African companies that are providing jobs here. So you will want a platform that will be fair, so that there will be fair competition, so that jobs will be created the more, and production will increase. But those are some of the things you see, and you feel that perhaps people do not think through thoroughly these policies before they introduce them. But overall, I think that what the minister did yesterday as members of parliament is alien to us.
Okay,
clearly, we have procedures that are guided by our standing orders and the 1992 Constitution. He indicated yesterday that he has written to the Speaker of Parliament. I have been struggling to find any standing order to back that kind of procedure when, any document before the House laid by a minister has to be
sent
modified.
Is that the process?
That's the thing. I'm struggling to find a procedure in the standing orders that supports that action that he has taken. What I do know is that for our standing orders, it is the president that can write to the Speaker, communicate to Parliament through the Speaker, and then I think Council of State members, they can communicate to Parliament through the Speaker. But I do not know of ministers communicating using that same, medium of transmitting their message. What ministers are expected to do is that they appear before the floor, they ask permission from the Speaker, and they make a statement on government policy. So if this is a modification to the policy, the budget, of government, which is a policy of government, it has to go through that process of the minister himself appearing. And you see, I feel the minister is running away from... Is the
minister avoiding you guys?
No, he's
maybe he's a little tired of all your drama.
There's a certain denial that is creating, the uneasiness that we see that this budget is engulfed in. Look, according to the minority, we believe that what we did on Friday was legal.
Okay.
The rejection of the budget was legal. We also believe that the charade they engage in on Tuesday to seek to throw away our decision and approve the budget was illegal because they did not have the numbers. The Speaker couldn't have been part of the quorum that was required to take a decision, given our standing orders, Order 7, that says the person presiding is Speaker. And then when you link it to Article 104 of the 1992 Constitution, that says, no, 102 of the 1992 Constitution, that says that the person presiding does not have a vote. We do not think that he could have been part of quorum. So we believe that it was thrown out. Now, they have conveniently, ignored our position consistently and are convinced in their minds that the budget is approved. And once you proceed on that, you are not going to get cooperation from us, the minority, because we will be speaking from different pages of the book.
And
whereas you believe that the budget is approved, and so we should go to committee and consider these proposals. We don't believe that there's a budget before the House, let alone for an engagement to start at committee to consider the estimates. So whereas he consistently referred to the e-levy as the elephant in the room, I would want him to address his mind to a bigger elephant in the room. That is the question of whether the budget has been approved or rejected.
Okay.
That is the step we have to cross before any other engagements on the concessions can be considered.
Okay, so how do we cross that step? Because we seem to, you know, have been at that point for a very long time.
Yes, but you cannot wish it away. You have to confront it.
Okay.
And you cannot bulldoze your way through, and your way being that it's been approved.
Not with 137.
Exactly.
It's not a majority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there is a need for them to pipe down on their conviction that a budget has been approved.
Okay. Are you speaking for the minorities? Is this how you feel?
Absolutely. That's how we feel as a minority.
Okay.
And that is why I am saying that it is not helping the discussion moving forward.
Okay.
Because many members are not happy that meetings have already been scheduled at the committee level, as if to say that our position that the budget has been rejected doesn't matter.
Okay.
That is insulting. That is disrespectful to begin with. And that is not the way to negotiate when you have a stalemate. Believing that your position is right, your position that you have approved the budget is right, and so we must willy-nilly come to the committee and engage you. Ignoring the fact that we are also convinced that we rejected the budget. And in fact, on Wednesday, we made an attempt to even correct what they did on Tuesday. And they ran away. They ran away because the speaker who was presiding ran away and did not, allow the House to take a decision on what they did on Tuesday. That is not democratic. You don't only engage in a democratic exercise when you can control the outcome.
Yeah.
But that is what they seem to be doing from last Friday, 2 weeks ago. When they realized that if a vote, if we're allowed to take a vote that Friday, they were going to lose, they walked out.
Yeah.
Using General Mosquito as an excuse. Again, on Wednesday, when we moved the motion, got it seconded, the Speaker allowed it to be debated to rescind their decision that they took on Tuesday, which we consider inappropriate and unlawful. And the Speaker again noticed that if he allowed the House to take a decision on it, they were going to lose that motion. He sought to rule on a motion which was alien to our standing orders. And when he was reminded that he needed to call a vote, and he noticed that their side didn't have the numbers, again the Speaker suspended and walked out with the caucus. That is not democracy.
Do we need to wait for the Speaker to come back before this can actually be resolved?
We don't necessarily have to wait for the Speaker. It will be a shame.
If we have to.
If we have to, it will be a shame.
Like that.
It is for government to climb down from their high horse. Look, they are responsible for running this country. And the people of Ghana have every reason to hold them responsible if this stalemate is not resolved. And it is the reason why they ought to be more, patient. They have to exercise more restraint and not to be dictatorial and not to feel that it's got to be their way or no way.
No.
They need to pipe down and engage appropriately. And in my view, what can happen, for example, Parliament is sitting today. There is still a motion before the House. The motion that was moved on Wednesday and seconded and debated, which the House could not take a decision on. Probably the Speaker that will be presiding today can allow that process to conclude. Let us take a vote on it. See if that Tuesday decision will be upheld. The Tuesday decision that purportedly approved the budget will be upheld, or it will be rejected. And once that is rejected, then the decision that the budget has been rejected will stand. And then the finance minister...
Clarify this for me before you go on. If this motion were to go forward and the Speaker is acting in his capacity as a Speaker and therefore doesn't have a casting vote, It brings everything to 137, 137.
That is if all members are
If all members. Well, I mean, I'm sure you've all been instructed. Everybody should be. I mean, the president has said nobody should travel.
And that's another thing.
But then, so the speaker is acting in his capacity as speaker. Is 137, 137. Yeah. What does that mean? If, 137 yeas, 137 nays, what does that mean?
It means the motion is lost. That's
so you understand why then the motion will not move forward, because
but you see, that's why I said that democracy should not only be when you can control the outcome you expect.
So what about the 20-member committee? Because that gave us some sort of indication that we were making inroads.
No, there was some miscommunication about the 20-member committee. And maybe before I speak to it, let me just tell you my worry again about the posture of this government.
Okay.
I mean, in times like this, when you have a government talking about negotiating and calming people down and saying we need to sit down and talk, then you hear in the air that the government is stockpiling arms, quote and unquote. When you say no minister should travel, no deputy minister should travel, what are you telling me in the minority? That you are preparing to marshal your forces in the house to do something that I will not be pleased with?
To vote.
Yes, to vote. I understand. But what I'm saying is that then you are telling me that in the past you have run away from votes simply because you make it difficult for me to trust engagement with you.
I also understand that the majority are at a disadvantage in that situation because a lot of the ministers come from parliament.
Yeah.
As opposed to the minority.
I don't have anything wrong with it. I mean, under the circumstance, if the decision is that let's sort each other out on the floor, no negotiations, no engagements, let's marshal our forces and win this on the floor,
until
I will understand that.
Comes back.
No, I'm saying that I will understand that. But I mean, if the message is that no negotiation, I mean no engagements, let's all marshal our forces and sort it out on the floor. I'll understand why you will send a message to your forces. But when you are telling people that no, the voting and the engagement on the floor is not the way to go, let's form committees and talk, and then I see that you are marshalling your forces to the floor, I begin to distrust you. I begin to feel that perhaps you have some other motives, and I should also perhaps be arming myself for any eventuality. I think that
generally there's a
But on the 20-member committee, exactly, on the 20-member committee, it is misreported.
Okay.
I mean, my understanding is that, yes, there is a committee that is working on the issues that are on the table. But that committee is different from this 20-member committee that was reported on last week.
Yeah.
I have engaged with the leadership of our side, and the understanding I have is that after the events of Wednesday, some of the senior members of the House expressed concern about the possible degeneration into violence of the disagreements.
Yeah.
And so decided amongst themselves with leadership to form a committee of 20, 10 from each side. That will be tasked with de-escalating tension on the floor. That's basically what this 20-member.
That's the message that came
so
out.
that's what I'm saying. It's misreported. It's a peace task force on the floor.
On the floor of chambers. So nobody should shout. Nobody should pull anybody's chair. Nobody should shove anybody.
As for shouting, as for shouting, you can't control it.
I mean, like the shut-ups and stuff.
Yeah, you can't control it. It's part of parliamentary processes. I mean, the parliamentary process. Heckling is allowed in every parliamentary process. Shouting and
but
being
no
passionate.
shoving.
And you see, I think that I must make this appeal. Okay. I've heard people express a lot of concern, a lot of reservation. They have suggested that some of these things look messy and they are not tidy, they are not elegant. I agree, and I hope that we did disagree in better ways. But we have to understand that is democracy. It may seem small, it may seem noisy, it may seem messy, but when we have the opportunity to make big decisions, I mean, that is the process that even other countries as we speak today are fighting to have. It's an opportunity people are risking their lives to have.
Yeah.
Because the alternative is not pleasant. We should have this opportunity to argue as passionately as we can, to be noisy as much as we can, but in the end take the decisions that we all share in and hope will impact our lives better. It is ideal.
Yeah.
And I mean, Iraq, Egypt, and others are fighting for that opportunity. So let us not begin to think that, you know, it is that nasty and need to be thrown out and replaced. It can be better, I agree.
Okay.
We can refine it.
Yeah, no, once you continue.
Yes.
Nobody should sit on anybody. Nobody should pull anybody's chair. I mean, those are the things
I agree.
that
I mean, yes. So it can be better. But let us understand that this noisy, messy, you know, conduct is part of the democratic process of taking decisions that eventually impact our lives.
You almost make it sound romantic. Almost. No, the passionate fighting for the good of Ghana.
No, I mean, these things have consequences. Just like you said when you were introducing this program. I mean, a lot of people sometimes just feel that, oh, I don't really care about politics. I mean, I may vote or not vote on an election day. I mean, it doesn't impact me in any way. But it does. I mean, yesterday, I mean, look at the number of people who got stranded on their way to wherever was important to them.
Of course, yeah.
Look at the number of people who got stranded. That is as a result of a choice that we made as a people to give authority and power to a government.
Yeah.
That's the consequence of it. You can turn it and dice it however you want, but it's the consequence of the choices that we make
a year ago today
at elections. Yeah. Exactly. And that is not the only thing. If you were not stranded, you know, because perhaps you are fortunate to have a vehicle,
you're paying a lot of money.
Go to the fuel station and then you know how much you pay for fuel. It's as a result of the choice that you make. I mean, maybe another government would have said that the price stabilization levy and others have outlived their usefulness.
Maybe.
So maybe. I'm just saying. Yes, because you haven't tried it. I mean, if I say that would have been the case, I may be.
Of course.
You know, but I'm saying that maybe. And that is why you need to make a rational choice in an election. It shouldn't just be about how a party makes you feel at the time of voting. It shouldn't be emotional. It should be a rational choice. You should listen. I mean, politics, it's difficult to know who is
telling the truth.
Some people will even say, I mean, it's between the hard place and a rock, whatever.
It's like when a boy is conning you. You know, you don't know what he's saying that's real and what's
I like your example.
Yeah. So,
but what I'm saying is that in the end, you should be rational about your choice. I mean, make a decision based on what appeals to your senses, what you think is possible, you know, based on your own understanding of how things work. And not just because
of how you feel.
Yeah, of how you feel.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to Dr. John Krumah now. He's a Deputy Finance Minister and MP for Ejisu, and he's joining us as well. Good morning, Doc.
And my greetings to my brother, Sunni.
Good morning, John.
I should present some of the teasers for me. If you're enjoying it alone.
Well, unfortunately, you didn't come. I would have loved you to be here.
Okay, Doc, so my first question. The Minister of Finance submitted this letter, this modification thing to the Speaker. Could you clear up for us whether that's standard procedure in the first place? Why wasn't it presented to the floor of Parliament? Why was it a letter that was directed at the Speaker?
Well, okay, so on the floor of Parliament, when the concerns were raised, he sought opportunity from the Speaker for adjournment so that he could properly lay those issues before Parliament, but it didn't happen. And then on the day of approval, he further emphasized his readiness to bring all these concessions or amendments to reflect the proposals from the minority group as well. And one of the formal ways where you can bring such things to Parliament is to write to the Speaker. And once the Speaker gets the communication, I believe it will be put before Parliament, and the necessary processes will be followed. So that is also another way communicating to Parliament on the intentions of government to reflect the minority group's concerns and proposals.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll take your word for it on that one. I think the biggest question on everybody's mind is that, we've seen these modifications, these 7 points, and in a few minutes I'm going to just do a recap of that for those who are kind of joining the conversation now. But why is the e-levy not part of these 7 modifications? Because I'm sure that if you're following what's going on the ground, you must be aware that most people are really, really against the 1.75% that the government is proposing to charge on e-transactions. Why is it not part of the 7?
Well, the finance minister indicated that he's still talking and consulting on the e-levy, and as far as he was concerned, there was no consensus yet. I believe in a few days to a week or before the bill is actually presented to Parliament, that firm announcement will be made in terms of what is the rate. People say they want 0%. Some say they want 1%. Some want 1.5%. Some want 1.75%. In fact, I've heard people who are even proposing 2%. Others are proposing 5%. Lawyer Bento, he wants 5%. So,
well, I'm sure he can afford it, but obviously he's not speaking for the average Ghanaian.
Exactly, but it's not only about affordability. A number of factors will be taken into consideration in coming to the conclusion on what is good for our country and what we can all do to build this country together. And it's because of these diverse views and need to consult more. So the finance minister has held on to that. And even beyond all these opinions, we also have to engage the telcos, the EMIs, the electronic money issuers, those who actually deal with Momo and stuff. And I believe that eventually an announcement will be made reflecting the generality of what Ghanaians think should be done. So rest assured that firm announcement will be made soon.
Okay, Doc, just give us a second. We want to do a recap of what the minister said, just for those who are joining the conversation so that we're clear on what these 7 modifications are. So take a listen.
So on behalf of the President, I have written to the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament with details of modifications in response to emerging concerns by all stakeholders, including the Minority Caucus. Please allow me to update the people of Ghana on what we have proposed, on the modifications that we have submitted to the Speaker. With regards to Ajapa Royalties Limited, we shall amend paragraphs 442 and 443 to take out reference to mineral royalties collateralization. It's important to note that any reference to Ajapa was for information purpose and as such was not reflected in the fiscal framework of the budget. In respect of the unfortunate tidal waves which rendered about 3,000 people homeless in Keta, Ketu South, and Anloga constituencies, we shall make the necessary budgetary allocations of at least 10 million Ghana cedis to complete the feasibility engineering studies for the coastal communities adversely affected. We'll broaden the scope of the study to consider a more comprehensive solution to protect Ghana's 540 kilometers of coastline, including the 149 kilometers between Aflawe and Pram Pram. Meanwhile, NADMO has responded to the humanitarian crisis created by the tidal waves on the coastline. Relating to the Aker Energy transaction, we shall amend paragraphs 829 of the 2022 budget on the acquisition of a stake from Aker Energy and AGM Petroleum by GNPC to reflect the resolution of Parliament dated 6 July 2021 that the terms and conditions of the loan for the acquisition of the shares shall be brought to Parliament for consideration pursuant to Article 181 of the Constitution. And on the benchmark values, we shall avert any hardship to importers and consumers while safeguarding the interests of local manufacturing industries to secure and expand jobs for our people. The administrative exercise, which review 43 out of 81 line items, has the objective to promote local manufacturing and the 1D1F policy.
Okay, so that was the Minister of Finance talking about those 7 modifications. So I'm going to go back to Dr. John Kumah, who's the Deputy Finance Minister and MP for Ejisu. So there was a comment that I was reading on social media this morning, Doc, about the fact that, for example, the e-levy seems to be the easiest way to get tax from the people, as opposed to actually putting or investing more into the economy to get out of it. If you juxtapose the collection of tax from e-levy against, for example, increasing production, so that's touching on the benchmark values, increasing the things that we produce in Ghana, very simple things like fan belts or chewing gum or matches or things like that. You said that, 1D, 1F is going to deal with that, but, it's kind of now picking up. Should we not, begin to actually invest more in those things so that the economy is running on that? Because the NPP have been touting a production, led economy, but now we're not. It looks like we're actually just taking, money that's easy, from a lot of people who can't afford it.
Well, we are still focused on our principle of production instead of taxation. And if you check, about 17 news and taxes have already been scrapped or reduced since the NPP came to government. And even in this particular budget, we scrapped about 5 different taxes or reduced them, and only introducing one levy. No, the 2022 budget, you can check, it's just one levy we are introducing. The rest, we are either scrapping or repealing or reviewing. So that is how serious we take the issues of taxation. And you see, it is not so easy as people think that introducing e-levy is the easiest thing for government to do. We didn't just stand up to say we want to tax e-levy. It's taken long years of deliberate investment in interoperability and digitalization and all that for government to get to this level. And we think that Ghana is in a position of maturity for us to be able to introduce. We talked to about 10,000 Ghanaians to sort their view, to seek their views. And also we found out that about 40% of Momo users in Ghana do not send beyond 100 Ghana cedis a day. So those vulnerable groups that we think would be too sensitive to the levy have all been exempted. We are exempting a number of transactions like bank transfers, remittances. Initially, the remittances were included. We are exempting it. We are exempting a whole number of things, ATM and e-switch cards, and government tax payment platforms like Ghana.gov and several others. So I believe by the time the actual bill gets to Parliament and all the views from our friends in the minority as well, all the concerns Sunini and others have, by the time we incorporate all, we will all fine-tune exactly what we think we can do to raise revenues. And like the questioner. Okay. Oh, Zane, you want to make a point?
Yeah, yes, you see, what you just said reminds me of what former President Mahama said some time ago about this government, that it is government as we go, like we say MTN as you go. Because clearly what my brother John Kumah is saying is that they are still thinking through the policy even as they introduce it. I mean, it just tells you the lack of thoroughness in introducing policies that are aimed at impacting, positively. Look, clearly, this e-levy is not only problematic to the extent that people are going to find it difficult to afford, but it's also with the fact that it is not clearly defined. So
it is clearly defined.
Right now, you are now telling us those that were included and now taking off.
No. Being responsive to concerns doesn't make you not thorough, okay? The thoroughness involves listening to other people's concerns and saying that, is it possible to treat it this way? Is it possible to review it this way? We are not...
If you had done the consultation before this, if you had done the proper consultations before even introducing the policy, you wouldn't be tweaking it at this stage.
President Mahama would respond that if you get go, he will not listen to any concerns. We are not like that. So if you call it a statement that it's okay, we are not there.
The propaganda you go.
Yes, it's okay.
Propaganda, there you go.
Okay, I would appreciate it if we start to the substantive issue.
It's always important not to ignore other people's contribution. Okay, we are thorough. We have done a lot of research to get here, but we still believe in a democracy. You don't close the door to constructive criticism and suggestion. So it's not like we haven't thought through. We think that all these things will enhance exactly what government wants to achieve. Okay. But the point about investment and productivity that we were talking about, that is the whole essence of this e-levy. Okay, we think that looking at the fiscal impact of this e-levy, and if you check the 2022 budget, with the exception of VAT, which is accruing about 14 billion cedis in the revenue structure, e-levy will be the next biggest revenue space as far as Ghana is concerned, and it will help government to invest about 10 billion cedis in entrepreneurial initiatives with the U-Start program for young people to be able to create jobs, have access to patient capital, and be able to be economically viable. That is how you create the productivity and invest in people. We also want to do aggressive road construction. So if you check, we have removed the road toll. The entire road toll was giving Ghana 78 million cedis. And if I look at the nuisance, the traffic, the pollution, and the congestion, just to go and pay 1 cedi. And we have removed that because we think that it obstructs their productivity. And we are introducing this e-levy so that we'll be able to do more road construction, pay contractors on time, among others. But most importantly, the third point is on the debt sustainability. We are at the moment about 77.5% of our GDP to debt ratio. We cannot continue to pile our debt. And so, by the grace of God, if this e-levy goes through and the amount of fiscal space is offering, it helps us to roll back our debt and helps us to now look within Ghana and pull up enough resources to build our country.
See, this is where John we depart also from each other. Look, you have had a lot going for you as a government in terms of oil revenue, for example. Whilst the previous government did 4 billion, you have been getting over 20 billion from 3 oil wells. I mean, you have had you have borrowed more than any government in our history has borrowed. And that is why we are at this unsustainable level as far as our debt is concerned. Now, you have also gained so much from other sources of revenue. And if you have not been able to do what you claim you will use this e-levy to do all these 5 years, I mean, what is the assurance, what is the guarantee that when you get this e-levy, which is an additional burden on the already burdened taxpayer, I mean, that you are going to do any better? And listen, the finance minister, when I hear him sometimes, I wonder if he reflects on some of the positions he took before he became finance minister. He talks. Let me just finish on that. He talks, for example, about how many people pay their taxes in this country, and that it is inadequate. Well, it just didn't happen. It was so when he was marching on the streets and demanding that the taxes that people were paying be used with the Occupy Ghana. It was so. And then when he talks about we not being too burdened with taxes because, we are just less than 14% GDP. It was so when he was asking for more.
Only you in the studio, you bought all the propaganda without.
Oh, goodness. See who is talking about propaganda.
The assurance, let me give you. The assurance is that, you see, in the absence of a serious pandemic in the world like COVID, you left us a doomsday economy.
Oh, goodness.
The assurance is that you may manage this country. Look at the growth rate without COVID. You did 2.9%, 3.5%. But look, when we took over in 2017, this economy grew by 8.4%.
Well, John, I have often said this, and I think it is proven. I'm just telling it. I am being proven right. Look, what you had was a harvest. When you came into power in 2017, you came to harvest the hard work of the previous government.
Okay, so
you started planting your own seeds from 2018, and go check the figures from 2018 till now. When we are supposed to be harvesting, this is what we are harvesting.
I thought you wanted
the debt to GDP that is unsustainable is what we are now harvesting. You were handed over a better economy because the hard work had been done, and if you check all the indicators by 2016. Were predicted. I mean, all the predictions were there that the economy in 2017 was going to grow by 8%
and 3.4%.
By 2016, the EIU and others, the IMF, had all predicted that our economy in 2017 was going to grow by about 8%. So if you came and managed to achieve that, you should know. Give thanks to those who did that hard work.
That time, so the prediction was based on the
now your scorecard. So
I thought you
the effect of your
ask for assurance. You let me give you the assurance.
You need to let Doc answer the question.
In the studio, you have made all the propaganda. This time you want to be like the former president, that good syndrome. So allow me to do my pay as you go, as you have.
Well, posterity is judging him very favorably.
Doc, please go ahead.
Posterity is judging him favorably. You can call him whatever name. Posterity shows that he was on course.
Sweeney, the firm assurance I want to give you, and all these revenues you talked about. Look, in 2020 alone, we lost a deficit of 25.5 billion Ghana cedis as a result of COVID. Okay, where revenue was cut by 11.7 billion and extra expenditures of 14.6 billion in just 1 year. So trying to recover, and it's not only Ghana, it's a universal thing. Globally, there's supply chain disruptions, and everywhere there are complaints. Okay, so many countries went into recession. It is Ghana that, in our sub-region, were able to do one of the few countries that did positive growth in 2020. And we have seen persistent and consistent revamp and better growth even in 2021. And going forward into 2022, we are going to bring down the fiscal deficit to about 7.4%. All these things clearly show that indeed Ghana is in the hands of the good managers, and now the economy is actually responding. We need time. If you say that you want to know an assurance that indeed this e-levy is going to be used for the purpose that is going to be collected, rest assured, like I've told you, 3 important things will happen. We are going to apply about 10 billion of that in the medium term to youth entrepreneurship and job creation to reduce unemployment in the country. We are going to see that aggressive road construction. We have declared 2 years of road in our country, and we have seen the massive road infrastructure that have been rolled out. But there are problems because contractors are not paid on time. And this e-levy is going to help us to pay the contractors on time so that we can aggressively roll out the road construction. And we are going to publish for Ghanaians to see which roads have been constructed with this e-levy. And I can tell you that all the investment we have made with the resources, if you want to know what Ghana has done with the things you are talking about, ask every Ghanaian home, are your children enjoying free SHS? They will tell you yes. The allowances you cancelled, has it been restored? Yes. The NAPCO unemployed graduates you left them, have they been offered jobs? Yes. Okay, one district, one factory is happening across the country. Lots of massive growth and infrastructure all around the country. We are doing Agenda 111 and building district hospitals. And when COVID came, Ghana was one of the best COVID managed economy in the world, not just in Africa, in the world.
Doc, I'm sorry. I really want to just take a minute and talk about this, COVID situation. I mean, I've heard, the government talk a lot about, how, like you just said, Ghana was one of the best managed, and all of that. The truth is that Ghana didn't actually have the numbers in terms of symptomatic patients. So even though there was a strain on us, we actually didn't have those crazy, crazy numbers. So forgive me again, maybe this is an ignorant question, but, I'm sure a lot of Ghanaians are thinking this. We got help from,
I'm happy you have really defined the question well as probably ignorant. Because, listen...
But I haven't actually asked the question. Doc, I haven't actually asked the question yet. So maybe let me ask the question and then you can, because I was actually being nice, and when I said that, I'm absolutely no way ignorant. I'm actually being nice. So this is the question. This is the question. The question is, we got help from the IMF, we got aid, to tackle COVID. We were getting more revenue from oil. The government has been taxing us for a while, petroleum products, there was some new taxes the last time, NHIL, when you go and buy food. Last time I bought food, it was 88 cedis. The tax on the 88 cedis was 33 cedis. That was my bill. So you've been taxing us for a while. It really pains me and it pains a lot of Ghanaians when you respond to us by saying, oh, we had 1 year of COVID and so therefore all these things. It's almost as if your whole government is surmised into that 1 year of COVID and so it becomes the reason why everything is more expensive. Okay, fine. So let's put that aside. Now we're moving forward. We're talking about this e-levy. You're talking about the fact that we're going to do, make roads and, do this and we're going to use it to pay contractors and we're going to do that. And it all sounds good and we understand revenue generation. But where in all of this is the plight of the average Ghanaian who simply cannot afford to be taxed upon taxed? When it comes to this e-levy, we want to hear the compromise. The propaganda is great for social media and for our figures. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, how much money do I have in my pocket that I am not going to be taxed for? Because the last time I checked, there's no salary rise. The last time I checked, I'm not able to get a second job because jobs are not available. I'm supposed to trust you that you're going to take this e-levy and start this U-Start. In the middle of all of this, I'm supposed to trust that you're going to get a grip on corruption. Because if we look at the Auditor General's report, we lost so much to corruption. We lose so much to corruption.
It's never ending.
Well, it's my show. You know what I mean? It's my show, so I get the chance to tell you how I feel for a good 2 minutes. Yeah, but oh, Doc, you're throwing shade at me now. I don't think you want to do that.
Propaganda.
Go ahead. So I mean, address these concerns for me. Address these concerns for me.
No, you have made a passionate expression, and this is how many Ghanaians feel. So you are right about that. Except that I think that we should also be fair to government, especially with COVID. I'm happy you said that we didn't see the symptom enough to go to the extent of the damage ends of COVID. Let me tell you, when government started doing, or Ghana started doing contact tracing, America was asleep. And they found out very late that to be able to fight COVID, you need to have a team to chase after victims or patients and do contact tracing to their homes and people they have been to and where they've been to and quarantine them. Ghana did this far early. And that is why the damnable consequences of COVID was not experienced in the level that it was experienced in Brazil and other places and Italy and USA. So don't say that your government did nothing and that we were just lucky. There's nothing like luck when it comes to COVID.
I didn't say that.
You have to.
But yeah, okay.
Well, not you alone, but all those who think that we don't even have to talk about COVID and its impact on our economy. Look, it's not just Ghana. It's everywhere. COVID.
John. I think you are getting. John, I think you are getting the concern that she has expressed.
Oh no, I understand the concern. Except that look, I am saying
what I'm saying. Nobody is saying that our government didn't do anything about COVID. Nobody is saying so. All we are saying, I have said repeatedly, is that most of the things that the government did, one, were to grandstand because it was an election year, and so the president had to come to our homes to project himself in ways that, you know, will give him electoral capital. Grandstand. Secondly,
I don't think I agree with you.
No, I'm saying to me. Secondly, some of the second measures, I've said that repeatedly, that it was to grandstand. It was an election year. So it was a publicity stunt for the government. Most of the things they did was to gain some political capital out of it. The second thing was to award contracts to their cronies to make money, unfortunately, on the back of the poor Ghanaian, even as we battle COVID. And the evidence is there. So we are not saying you didn't do anything, but we are saying the motivation for some of the things you did was even wrong. You were concerned about...
You have to let Doc speak.
But he has been speaking since he got on. I have to always butt in because you don't come back to me.
Because you're here with me and he's on the phone, and so...
Yes, but at least when you are with him a little, come back. I've always had to butt in since he got on the phone.
So I beg you, just let me at least speak and go. The rest will be in your hands.
No, you can't speak and go, Doc, because I have more questions for you.
Well,
and I don't think that...
Maybe next time I'll also just sit home and
No, don't do that. I think next time Doc should be in the studio. But Doc, okay, so let's move on from you know, the back and forth and the politics, because
so
the question is...
the ordinary person paying taxes, which you talked about.
Yes, okay.
I genuinely agree with all. In fact, it's not only Ghana, everywhere wherever taxes are introduced, citizens have issues.
Of course.
Not just only about the ability to pay, but also concerns about its efficiency, the fight against corruption and inefficiencies in the waste in the system. How do we make sure that all these sacrifices we are making reflect in the actual delivery of governance and outcomes for the people? These are genuine expressions of worry that government has also taken on board. And we can assure you that all the measures, all the procedures, the internal and external auditing processes, the GIFMS procedures, and all the Financial Management Act requirements to ensure that there's prudent use of our resources will also be done. Expenditure rationalization and making sure that we don't overspend. And when my brother talks about 2020 being an election year, you can check the record. Compare, if you want to see the expenditure on election in any budget, check the goods and services expenditure. 2012, the NDC overspent by 37%. 2016, the NDC overspent by 61%. It is in 2020 that Ghana underspent by negative 11%. And we didn't even go anywhere for external financing in our budget for election. That was the first time in our democracy. Ghana fully funded
from the central government. Got $2 billion from the World
and
Bank.
we even spent less than negative 11% less than the budget of that election year in terms of goods and services. So the data doesn't support what my brother is talking about.
Okay.
Ghanaians genuinely needed water because some had lost their jobs, there was lockdown, no monies were being earned by individuals. So they needed electricity, they needed water. Government did these things genuinely to sustain the economy. It wasn't for election purposes.
Okay.
So I want to assure Ghanaians and everybody that these taxes are very necessary to ensure productivity in our country. It's very necessary to help create jobs for young people and bring out, unleash the entrepreneurial potentials in the young people of Ghana, and also to ensure that we are able to do our roads and build infrastructure, complete the Agenda 111 project, and several other interventions, and most importantly, ensure fiscal consolidation and debt sustainability. So it will be put to good use, and we are praying for their support as well.
Doc, I'm going to let you go just in a few minutes, but I'm sure, you know, you've experienced what it's like, you know, when your wife asks you for something and she asks you over and over and over and over again, and she throws a tantrum and all of that. And then finally you give it to her, and it seems like, yeah, well, if you could have given it to me, then why did you let me go through all of this? This morning, petrol, Goil, fuel is at 6.7. Did we have to kick such a fuss before you took some of the taxes away to make fuel more affordable?
Well, that's a very difficult issue, and I'm happy that when it comes to fuel, NPP and NDC are all guilty with fuel politics. Unfortunately, I mean, if you look at the global trend, and here when we talk about COVID, our friends disagree, but this is actually what is happening. If you check the OPEC nations, they are reducing supplies. As of last week, America has announced that they were going into their reserve to also supply fuel to bring down the prices. So these are things that usually as a country you may not have control over. And once we have all submitted to deregulation and say that if it goes up, it goes up, it comes down, it comes down. These are some of the prices we pay. If government intervenes at this level to say that, okay, instead of selling at 6.9 or 7, do 6.7, what it means is that then government has to look for resources to cushion the deficit or the balance, okay? And that is why any time government is redistributing the resources, it means that something else that we could have done is not going to be done. We are just out of pressure redirecting resources. So, like you said, did we have to get here? Did we have to let your wife nag and nag and nag? But as a husband, as to him, sometimes you expect your wife to understand the difficulty you are in. So if only she could be patient for a month or a week, circumstances could change, and then you could give to her without the nagging.
I see.
For instance, we are expecting the world prices to come down because the U.S. is intervening by also joining the supply chain. If these things begin to happen, you see the drop from the $90 downwards, and that would have resulted in the same changes that we are talking about without this cost that government has to bear. Please, I don't know if you get the picture I'm trying to
definitely get the picture.
So you don't get it.
No, I said I definitely get it.
Okay, so it's not like we have the comfort to do and we are ignoring. No, that is not the situation. But when you force government, it will redirect the resources and move some of what we're supposed to do in A to B just to contain the situation. So it's not something that we could do and we ignored. That is not the situation.
Right. Okay, there's so many more questions that I could ask you, but I'm just going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we hope that the next time that we speak, we'll be happier wives, figuratively. But thank you so much for joining us. Dr. John Kumah is the Deputy Finance Minister and MP for Ejisu. Okay, so let's wrap up. What are your thoughts on what he said, and more importantly, what is it going to take this government to convince you to agree to this e-levy?
At this stage, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't think that they can convince anybody already going through a lot of hardship and experiencing the waste that this government is engaged in to agree to any percentage of e-levy. At this stage, it's going to be difficult. That is why I believe that the right thing for the finance minister to do is to withdraw it from the budget and engage in extensive consultation, around the country.
From where? If he withdraws it, there's so much money that, the way I see it, it's almost like it's almost funding pretty much the whole budget.
You just made reference to the Auditor General report, and where 12 billion cedis was misappropriated. The levy is not going to give us anything more than that. So if government cuts the waste, the luxury that they are swimming in, chartering flights, engaging in trips that are meaningless to us, at very huge costs. If government prioritize better, just cut the waste.
Presidential staffers?
Yes, cut the waste. Just cut the waste in the system, and you will be saving a lot, and you'll be getting more from the little, even if it is little, that you will be applying to the needs of the people. So I think that at this stage, the best thing to do is to withdraw it, reduce expenditure, apply the revenue that they get more judiciously, and engage in extensive consultation around the country, and let people understand, first of all, sincerely, how we got to where we are. Because we need answers. We need to know how come we had so much in the last 5 years, yet we are at this stage. And COVID is not cutting it.
Yeah.
Because even during COVID, it is clear to us that we got a lot of support. 2 billion from the World Bank. You know, we, for the first time in a very long time, in fact, the previous government throughout its stay never borrowed from the central government, the central bank. They did because of COVID. Even things that we kept for a rainy day, such as the...
I know the one you're talking about. I was just thinking about it. It's just not coming in.
Yes, we went to deplete that.
Heritage.
Not the Heritage Fund. It's also, I think it's the Stabilization Fund.
Yeah, 1 year was one.
So we went for that. We went to borrow money from that. So even with COVID, you had so much. So there's a need for you to be sincere to us about how come we are in this big hole. I mean, in the past, when they do propaganda with what President Mahama said of eating to the bone, at least he was sincere that we are at where we are because we engage in doubling salaries of public sector workers. That was the single spine salary structure. So because we had doubled the salaries of most public workers, we had eaten all the meat to the bone. And so let's sit down and resolve it. At least that was a sincere leader who said, this is where we are. So because of where we are, we need to pay more. He introduced the ESLA and other taxes even when the oil prices went down after his budget, and he brought in the what they call price stabilization levy and said it is just for a period. When the oil prices come up, we'll take it off. You lambasted him, you demonstrated, you came to power, you maintained it. Even when oil prices are now hitting unexpected high levels, you are still maintaining it. That's insensitive. That is insincere also. So first of all, be sincere to us. How did we get to where we are? That you need more money. Then we can now perhaps in the consultation agree that, okay, we will give you the benefit of the doubt. Go sin no more, but we will not give you 1.7. Maybe we'll give you 0.5. Maybe it's because you had too much. That is why you misapplied it. And I have always made the argument that this government touts its, economic credentials and achievements, especially from 2017 to 2018, forgetting the fact that there is a gestation period for every policy. And so clearly, most of the attainments that they boast of in 2017, 2013 couldn't be wholly attributed to them. I won't say they didn't contribute to it, but it couldn't be wholly attributed to them. For example, if by 2016, based on the work that had been done in the oil sector, the pundits in the economy around the world started predicting a growth figure of 8% by 2017. If you came into office in 2017, that was harvest for you, so you harvested it. Yes, but perhaps you will need some, diligence so that you can harvest to the 8%. So you share it, but it is not entirely your work. What I see to be their scorecard now is what we are faced with. Where since then, you got so much. I mean, 2 oil wells were added to the 1 oil well. The ports were expanded for you to get more revenue. The taxes that were introduced at difficult times were beginning to accrue to you. The one who even introduced it didn't enjoy it as you were beginning to enjoy it. So you had so much, and so you went on a binge. You just started splashing everything. And now we are where we are. Be honest with us. Be sincere with us. And then in that consultation, I'm sure perhaps the people of Ghana in the coming years may consider a certain percentage, if possible. I don't think that we should get to that point. But first of all, the finance minister must do what is right. As far as this budget is concerned, I think writing to Mr. Speaker is not appropriate.
He's avoiding you guys.
It's not in our standing orders.
You guys are too much.
But you see, he has revised the budget. How do you revise the budget and say that you are continuing with it? You have to come to the House and revise it appropriately and ask for the revised budget to be approved appropriately. And then the committees will begin to consider the
I think it's going
estimates.
to be an interesting day in Parliament. I'm looking forward to that.
I think so too.
And of course, we'll be there, so we'll be bringing you all the news as it happens. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Alhassan Suhuyini, MP for Tamale North. We also had Dr. John Kuma, Deputy Finance Minister and MP It's just so. Okay, so we're moving on. After the break, I'll be telling you about King's Group of Companies Limited and what they have to offer you. Stay with us on the AM show.